Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery.
Yeah. You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of your.
Welcome to a shot glass of recovery, the speaker series. I'm your host, Lisa M. This is where we share powerful, real stories from the speakers of AA Solution Seekers Toronto, my home group. People who are living the solution and walking the path of recovery one day at a time. If something you hear here resonates with you, we invite you to show your support by dropping $1 or $2 into our PayPal virtual basket. It helps us keep carrying the message and making these recordings available to others who may need them. Now let's get into today's speaker.
Wow, thank you, Jen. This is amazing. I cannot believe A, the security, and then B, the attendance. Well done, everyone. So when I was still drinking, I used to joke to people, I'm not an alcoholic. Alcoholics go to meetings. I'm a drunk. Well, things have changed. I'm Carla and I'm an alcoholic. So I know that now, and I'm actually pretty happy that I'm able to say that out loud. It was a tough thing for me to do when I started, but my sponsor, her name is Jamie, and she's kind of demanding. She's lovely, but she's kind of demanding. I always say that she was born with army boots on. I'm a little afraid of her, and that's exactly what I needed. So my experience, strength, and hope. It's been a long time since I've shared my story. But I was always told, don't really prepare, just say what you need to say. So my experience, strength, and hope. I'm Canadian. I live in Ontario in a farming community, and my dad was a contractor, and my mom was a dental assistant. She just retired at 74. So work ethic was something that was very well instilled into me. And we grew up very, very lean. There wasn't anything extra. So if I needed something, I had to earn it, which with money, essentially. So my dad, I'll start with that. So my dad had a very bad upbringing. I don't know all of the details, but he was bounced around from to a few foster homes. There's a lot of abuse. I don't know all the details. And the day that he feels as if he was born is when he landed at his final foster home, and he was 12. So a lot can happen. And he was welcomed, but he knew he wasn't part of. I grew up with two sisters that are older than me, and my dad, I've never known a day that he hasn't drank when he was around. It just became something that I was used to. And the violence in our house was as a direct result of drinking. The violence was vicious and constant. When I was in grade 1, kindergarten or grade 1, I wanted to watch the A-Team, right? And it started at 8 p.m. and my bedtime was 8 p.m. And I really, really, really wanted to watch it. And my dad said, yeah, stay up. And my mom said no. And then we all ended up in their bedroom. And I don't know what happened, but I saw my mom fly across a bed and hit the wall on the other side. And I thought, that is fascinating. Looking back, I still have that image in my head at how strong my dad was. And with one blow, he can make a person fly through the air. But I was told, don't talk about it. Don't tell anybody. And I just obeyed. I was frightened. And I said, okay, that's it. I was just frightened. And so growing up, my first drunk, it's taken me 6 years in this program, or nearly 6 years in this program, to kind of remember when that was. I was in grade 8 and we were having it's called a harvest party at the end of the harvest, and I remember it so well. I remember the feeling of somebody just feeding me beer, and it was my boss, and my mom was there at the party, but she didn't really pay attention because she was hanging out with all the adults, and I got very, very drunk. I don't know how many I had, but I had enough that I was hungover and I had to go to school the next day, elementary school, and I was in grade 8, and, it was the beginning of the year, and it was funny because I got into some trouble. My mom was like, "Don't ever do that again," but I kinda liked it. And then during that same year, my dad we had to leave my dad. It was a very bad time, and the last day I lived with dad was when he had a knife to my mom, so we left the next day. So we left, but we didn't go far, far, far away. We were able to kinda stay in the small country community, and, there was a house that we moved into in 6 hours. It was all, "This is happening." It was a Friday, it was the day before my 13th birthday, and off we went, and I remember it was a Friday because it was a snow day. They canceled all the buses, but there was no snow. Kinda weird. And my dad was, he was like, "Okay, well, you're not living with me. How can I?" He was my enabler. He would put Silent Sam vodka ah, into the other one of the outbuildings on the property. And I went into high school with this endless supply of vodka. And I would just sit there and drink at parties, bush parties, and I would drink at home by myself in my room. I was a very depressed child, very depressed. And the idea of speaking with somebody about that was it was unheard of. So it was something that like my mom in now she's like, maybe we should have went to like a psychiatrist or something or a therapist. But it was something that we just didn't do. So I was used to doing everything on my own. I can fix it. I didn't think there was a problem either. I just drank, just like dad. And that was okay because he got away with it, right? And I can do that too. I came by it honestly. It was one of the jokes of our family, who has some people that I knew, they couldn't even drink coffee. They're like, "Oh, my stomach can't handle it." I come by it honestly. I get it from my dad. And I said, "Well, thankfully I get my dad's stomach too." And I would just drink all the time. When I went into university, I went to Waterloo and I was 18, but there was no IDing. That wasn't really a thing. And there was a bar in the residence community where I lived, and it was called Weaver's Arms. And I was there as often as I possibly could be, and to the point that I failed out of university very quickly. I was a Christmas graduate, but I stayed at the residence, and every single day with my OSAP student loan, I would go over to Weaver's Arms and belly up to a bar. I was 18, 19 years old by myself drinking, and I thought I was cool. I was very ashamed of myself. I was a loser. I was a failure for leaving or for not for failing. I was for, losing my student, like I failed school. I don't do that. School comes easy to me. But I failed, and I was very ashamed, and after that, I ended up going to Fanshawe College, and I did essentially kind of learn my lesson. I went for graphic design, and it was 3 years, and I was very, very focused, but I also had no money because I drank it all away the year before, and I had to focus, and I was living with my mom, so I was driving an hour each way in my 1979 Chevy Malibu four-door. It was brown. It was from my great aunt. It was the most hideous car ever, but it got me there. and and I I used it. That was the option because I was so ashamed of the failure I was. I didn't even want to talk to people. I kept it all inside. I graduated, doing very well. And I didn't, there was that span. It was basically, 19 to 21, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, in there that I really didn't drink much. Soon after, I met my husband, my today husband, and life got a little easier. I got a job and we lived in a house and things were still in the country. He kind of grew up the same way I did in that environment. I just saw lightning. And yeah, but in that early 20s, all of our friends we would get together and bring a case of beer and we would sit at someone's house and drink every day. And then every day at home, if we weren't at friends' places, we would have beers and wine. And, then I got a job and there was a little bit of money. So that was the culture. We would have wine at supper and wine and beer and drinks out on the deck. And it was just what we did. We were each other's drinking buddies. This went on 10 years and it was pretty manageable because we didn't have enough money to spend too much, if you know what I mean. Like it was limited means in a sense. Then in my 30s, I got a better job, better as in higher paying, more of a management position. I ended up getting a job where I was on the road. I'm a traveling salesperson and I took every advantage I could, every single one. Living in hotels, nobody knows what you're doing. I had a secret life. My secret life included driving to some hotel, having meetings. Before showing up there, I would stop at the liquor store. I would grab Tetra Pak, which I loved, of wine, a bottle, a 26er of vodka, and a couple other cans pre-mixed of something, usually beer. And I would start drinking as soon as I checked into that hotel between 3 and 3:30. I would do a little bit of work. I would be buzzing and I would get in the car and I would go to I'm just making sure my husband's not up because he doesn't need to know all these details. So I would go out for dinner with my client and then we would have drinks there. And then I would go back to my room and I would work hard at finishing whatever I bought. So every day that was a liter and a half of wine, 26er vodka, and whatever other drinks I bought every day, every single day. To the point that when I was working from home, I still needed that. My body needed that. So I would go to the liquor store and I would buy twice that amount or add it up. Like if I was home for 2 days, I would buy twice that amount. If I were home for 3 days, I would buy 3 Tetra Paks and 3 26ers. They were easier to hide than the 40 ounces. I would hide alcohol all through my house to the point that I forgot where I hid it. And my husband would come home from work and he would find a passed out, covered in piss wife. And we stopped sleeping in the same bed. And on the weekends, we would have drinks together. He didn't know that as soon as I woke up at 6 a.m., I would start pouring vodka into my coffee cup and have a buzz. So by the time he woke up, I would have coffee in there in that cup. So it was just a life of hiding. And I would hide, like, honestly, I hid vodka in the pantry, which he never goes into the pantry. And it all when you pull out the drawer, all you see is lids of like olive oil and different like balsamic vinegar and whatnot. Never really paid attention that there was a red lid from the Smirnoff. And the other bottles I hid in the tea towel drawer, which seemed to be a place he never went. So he got to a point, he was looking for another place to live. I was going to therapy and they said, he's not going to leave you. You've done this much. He's not going to leave you. You don't have a problem with drinking. Just cut back a little bit. I was getting all of these signals that I don't have a problem, but they were really, really willing to take my money after that hour. Here's $180 and thanks for enabling me and making me telling me what I want to hear, essentially. It was really it was hard. It was hard to hide it. It was hard to live, but it was what I did. And nobody knew, aside from my husband, what I was doing. Nobody. Nobody at work. Once in a blue moon, someone I would be on the phone with, a client, would say, "Have you been drinking?" And of course, lie. No, absolutely not. Just not feeling well. And I would get off the phone as fast as I could and then drink away that problem. And it was just constant. The moments I was awake, I was drinking. My body needed it. And my husband said he's leaving. He's finding another place to live. We didn't have a disposable income, so it was a little too expensive for us to separate and, figure out what we were going to do. And he kept saying AA. And I said, actually, it was yesterday in this Living Sober book that we read from. It was funny. I have these lines highlighted because I thought they were actually written about me. These words came out of my mouth, but they're in this book. It said, "It's fine for them, but I'm not that bad. It isn't for me." And then I also said, "All that God stuff and going to meetings turns me off. Anyway, I've never been a joiner." I've said those things, and it was written in this book that we read yesterday. It's on page 49. Ooh, lightning. And so I really thought I was terminally unique. I was the only one that was going through this. My dad did it. That's how he is. I still loved him. So can't be that bad. My mom had no idea. My mom is like, she's the sweetest, angelic, goofy, funny person I've ever known. She had no idea that I had this problem. Not a clue. My husband would tell her Carla's drinking too much. And for about 2 months prior or 3 months prior to me joining AA, her and I would go to Aquafit 3 mornings a week. And I was hungover every single time. But she didn't know because I told her I don't drink that much. Actually, it's him. And she's like, "Is this real? He's lying." And I was turning her against him. The final day, it was April 7th, 2020, right before or at the beginning of the first COVID lockdown. The beginning. He came home. I had passed out 3 times that day. He came home. I was a mess. He found my stash in the tea towel drawer and in the pantry, and he set it all up on a dresser in the bedroom, that the guest bedroom that I was passed out in, on top of the covers. And he took a picture of that, took a picture of me, and sent it to my mom. And she called him up, and he was in the other bedroom. And I woke up to her on speakerphone screaming at him and calling him a liar and a prick and everything under the sun. And he said, "Can I talk now?" And she said, "Fine." And he explained what it was like to live with me to her on speakerphone. And at that point, I woke up and I walked into that bedroom and I crouched down in the corner of the room and I just sobbed. And he explained to her in words out loud what it was like to live with me. And she said, "Oh my God, she's just like her father." And that was the moment that broke me. So I called AA. And I was pretty convinced that there would be no one to help me because it was COVID, everything was locked down. And after a few phone calls, I ended up talking to who is now my sponsor. And she said, "We have Zoom meetings." And I said, "Okay, I'll do whatever it takes." And she asked me, "Will you do whatever it takes to stop drinking?" And she said, "You need to answer this." And I said, "Yes, I will do whatever you tell me to do." So I started going to Zoom AA meetings, and those ones in the beginning were pretty funny. Some clown would show up showing his nutsack, and people were all offended, and I'm laughing, and I'm like, what is this? What, what is this? And I was all freaked out. Everybody knew what to say. I didn't know there was readings. I just, you know, she said, and that day, her sponsor called the church where the meeting was here in the town that I live. Her sponsor called the minister, and when he got her in there, she grabbed a big book, a grapevine, some pamphlets, and wrapped it up in a plastic grocery bag. And I saw her show up. This older lady. She ran up to my driveway, threw the bag onto the front porch, basically knocked on the door and ran away. And because we were all like freaked out about COVID, we didn't know what this was. We were still calling it coronavirus. And I, grabbed it, I cleaned it all off with Lysol and all of that stuff. And I started. And I started by going to at least 2 meetings a day on Zoom. I was stuck at home because I'm a traveling salesperson and we can't go to work. So I did everything from home. So in the morning and in the afternoon and in the night, I would go to a meeting, usually 3 meetings a day. It got down to about 2, depending on how I felt about the meeting. Plus, I talked to my sponsor every single day. And I sweated it out in this room that I'm in right now because all of the detoxes, all of the rehabs were closed up. There was nothing. There was zilch. This was the first lockdown started March 13th. And so that's 1, 2, 3. It was the 4th week, between the 3rd and 4th week of the first lockdown. So we all, like you guys know, we all lived through it. We didn't know what was happening. The only thing open was the liquor store, which was kind of funny. But I did it. I got through it. And I got through it standing on the shoulders of everyone in these rooms. And I had my big book. This is the one that dropped off on my front step. And she wrote on there, my sponsor's sponsor wrote, April 8th, 2020, to Carla from the Wednesday Night Recovery Group, Tilsonburg, you are not alone. And that's what, or maybe it was, yeah. And then I wrote March 17th was the start of the first lockdown. So I guess I wrote that in here too. So that's how I started my new life. I didn't drink. I went to meetings and I started getting honest and saying words out loud to people of how I felt, as opposed to keeping it all inside. The further I got into all of this literature, I realized that I am not alone. I am not terminally unique. I thought, as I read the big book, I don't know how many times into it because my brain was just a foggy mess. The clearer my brain got, I realized this book was written about me. Like, that's weird. So other people are feeling this too? That's weird. And it began to open my mind up. And it worked. It got to a point, not going to lie, that my marriage was still stuck together. It was holding it together. I was still sleeping in a separate room. But it got to a point over a few years that my husband's like, do you need to go to that many meetings? That many every night? Like, if you're going in the morning and the afternoon, do you have to go every night? So I talked to my sponsor about it. And she said, you have to find a balance. So I continue that balance search today because life gets lifey. I don't know what my life is going to be like next week. I have an idea. Like I basically just stick with today and have kind of have an eye on tomorrow. Because at first it was like every Sunday I would go to, a meeting, and then every Wednesday I would go to a meeting, and then I would still do the Zoom meetings throughout. And it always has to be adjusted depending on my life. I've since had 2 years ago, I started a new job, the same clients, different product. But I'm on the road even more, and my territory grew by a lot of provinces. So my territory is now Manitoba to Newfoundland. And I go to as many meetings on the road as I possibly can now because when I'm home, I really try to focus on being home. My husband still drinks. It's kind of funny. There's no liquor or wine allowed in the house, but he does have beer and it's in the beer fridge in the garage. So there's no cans or evidence of it that I ever see. Every night or whenever, he goes into the garage with an empty glass and he comes back with something in the glass. I don't know what it is. He knows there's no liquor, no wine allowed. Zilch. He maybe finishes 2 beers and he's done. And now I think about that. I'm like, was it me that pushed you to drink so much? Maybe it was. There are nights that he doesn't have anything. I don't understand. And in the mornings, I'll wake up and there's a half a glass of beer. And I'm like, you didn't finish it? Like, what a waste. So it's funny. I have those opinions now, and I realize I really am an alcoholic. When I take that first sip, my body's like, game on. Let's do this. It's party time. I cannot have one drink. I know that. I am very cognizant of it. And I am not afraid to tell people I cannot have a drink. My job now, I go down to the office, it's in Michigan, and people will say, oh, like we all stay in some fancy hotel where there's booze, is stocked fridge. And someone will get on a group chat and they'll say, is there a full bar? Is there a mini bar in the room? And I have already arranged with the hotel to have it removed from my room. And before I show up, they suck at that, by the way, but well, that doesn't matter. So people, I'll respond on the email or on the group text. I'm like, not my room. My room's dry. And this will be somebody new that I'm working with. And after when we all get together, they're like, what do you mean your room's dry? We all have mini bars. I'm like, oh, no, I can't drink. Like, why not? I said, because I'm an alcoholic and I'm in AA. And it's gotten to a point now, my boss knows he's a mountain of a man and he is very intimidating, but he is a very kind man. When I started at this job in June of 2024, I just keep looking at my calendar, have to remember what year. A few weeks after my sponsor, she said, you need to tell your boss that you're in AA. I'm like, all right, fine. So I was down there and I had my 5-year medallion in my pocket and we were in his office and it was him and the director of sales. And I said, guys, you're both in here. This is a safe room. And they said, yep. I said, I need to tell you something. And they're like, oh my God, you quit. And I'm like, no. But I have to tell you, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I am in AA. I have a sponsor. I have sponsees. I have responsibilities. I do not drink. And they were like, that's amazing. Really? Their reaction was almost comical. Since that time, my boss, the mountain of a man, he'll come over and he has a Dutch accent because he's actually Dutch. And he's like, Carla, how do you go about going for dinner without having any drinks? How do you do this? I'm like, well, if somebody wants a drink, they can have a drink. It has nothing to do with me. I would prefer not to go for dinner. I prefer to go for breakfast or lunch. And then I have my dinners by myself and I sit in my hotel, do a bunch of work, and then go to a Zoom meeting. And he's like, I'd like to, maybe cut back a bit. I feel like I'm not being as present with my 6 kids. I'm like, do you want to go to AA? And he's like, I don't know. And 3 weeks ago, he messaged me on WhatsApp. He's not in AA, but he did say, today is 1 year since I've had my last drink. And whenever we get together as a big group, we always go to some restaurant that has like simulated golf or bocce or bowling or something. And it's all appetizers, these big giant trays of appetizers that come out, and everyone's drinking. And he sticks really close to me. And he's like, "What are you drinking?" And I'm like, "I don't know, water or cranberry soda. I love a cranberry soda." And he's like, "I don't want to be around that anymore." I'm like, "I get it. Totally get it." So we just kind of stick close together. We don't always talk about work. We just talk about life and spirituality. I can have those kinds of conversations with people now, and I really enjoy it. I'm still an inappropriate broad. Holy. I say some pretty inappropriate things, and the jokes that I come out with are are they make men squirm. It's pretty funny. And I work in construction, and it's I thought when I stopped drinking, I would change. No, it's still me. I'm not a lush anymore. A few years ago, my dad got into some trouble with his health. He lives off the grid in the bush, in the forest, in a trailer with a bunch of cats. And he got hurt. It was, he hurt his ankle, and he didn't get help. And he kept telling everyone it was fine. And he drank away his pain. Drank so much so that like he didn't shower. It was stinky. It was gross. It was all bad. It was worse than bad. It's unexplainable. The smell, especially. A lot of people told me I need to help, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I ended up calling my sponsor, and I said, "This is what's going on with dad." I went there to see him. He will not go to the hospital. He will not leave. He is a very strong man. I cannot convince and physically move him. That's it. And I know the power behind his arms. Like it's very real. And he would beat me. I have no doubt about that. But instead he just tells me to bugger off. It's Sunday, so I'm not going to say his real words, but he would tell me to bugger off. And he was basically living a life where he was drinking whiskey straight or with Coke if he had it, and drinking or eating condensed soup out of the can. So not, just open up a can of Campbell's tomato soup and eat it with a spoon. And the reason I know that is there was wheelbarrows filled with empty cans of tomato and mushroom soup. And so anyway, I talked to my sponsor, and she said, "You need to call the police. You need to have a wellness check done on him." And it's Sunday, so I won't say the real words, but I told her that's a ridiculous idea. But I did it anyway because I do whatever she tells me to do. Police went, they couldn't find him. He ended up being with his brother. And anyway, we got dad to in front of an EMT. We had to trick him, my uncle and I, but they basically said, "Hi, Carla told us that you have a sore foot. We want to have a look at it." So they took his boot off. Lives out in the bush. He wears these big work boots. They took the boot off, took the bags off, which were like milk bags, and his foot was covered in maggots. Imagine the smell of a human being that has maggots covering their foot. He went to the hospital. My uncle called me. He's like, "You got to come." My uncle, also a mountain of a man. I show up at the hospital. He's crying. He's like, "I'm going to lose my brother." And I'm like, yeah, you are. But from that moment, my dad was trapped. He was a bear with his foot in a trap, and he was getting help. He stopped drinking that day. And I told him, "It's over. You're done drinking." The place where he was living it was so rotten. It was uninhabitable. A tent would have been better. So I called up a friend of mine who has an excavating business, and I said, "I'll pay you whatever you need and get rid of it all." So, and this land that he lives on is not his. He squats. So it was all, we got to do this quick because dad's coming back. So I had this guy come with dumpsters and a backhoe and all of the things. It was all gone. It cost me a ton. Sorry, Sunday. And none of the debris could go to the regular dump. It had to go to biohazard because it was so bad. I didn't even know that was a thing until this happened. I didn't drink. I went to see dad every day. I didn't drink. I told him, everything you own is gone. Humane Society came and took all of your cats that have one eye. Everything you own is gone. Every single thing. You don't own a pair of socks. Everything was gone. I went to Giant Tiger and I filled up a bag of some clothes, underwear and socks and a pair of shoes. And I'm like, these are your belongings. This is it. And he was okay with it. He's like, well, what's done is done. That's kind of how he lives. He ended up I had to put him in a motel for a while I found a trailer and arranged people. People will do a lot of stuff for money, and had another trailer put in. My one sister helped me. My other sister just cried. She didn't help at all. And I figured, you know what? I was in this program long enough that I'm like, she's doing this is what she can do. This is in her capacity. I don't hold it against her. My other sister was like, what do you need? I'll go to Value Village. I'll get the pots and the pans and the towels and the things. And that was a tough time. But I told dad, you drank once and it's over. This is all over. I can't come back. It's been a few years since then. Dad is drinking again. That's up to him. He knows where to come for help. He knows that I'm in AA. We are completely clear with each other when he calls me, because he has a cell phone. It's like a flip phone, the old school ones, that is in my name. I pay for it. That is his whole world. Like, that is his outside world. He doesn't drive. He lives in the bush. He's got a few buddies that show up, and he cuts wood all day and drinks. I've learned that I had to disconnect. His behavior has nothing to do with me. He knows where to go for help. It's tough, but it's the reality, and I need to protect my sobriety. It is the most important thing to me. If I wake up and I don't have sobriety, that means I don't have a home. This awesome house. I don't have a husband who I've built everything with. We started out with zilch, and now a few weeks ago I paid off our credit line, so we don't have to pay interest anymore. And I'm like, I'm not spending thousands of dollars a month on liquor. He can trust me. I literally go to hotels now, get a Tim Hortons flatbread, which, I go for the coffee, and I get whatever is still available at 6 o'clock at night. I go back to my hotel room and I work until 9. But in that time, either before 9 or after 9, I hit up the Zoom meeting. It's a pretty lame life, but it's exactly what I want. I've been looking for calm. I kept talking about, I just want a calm home. Calm. Before I stopped drinking, our house was so tense that my cats pulled their hair out of their stomachs. And now they're way healthier and way calmer. And I owe it all entirely to this program and sticking with it. And I see there's 3 minutes left. I'm not sure if I should go to the 3 minutes or if I just end it there. Jen's going to say something. Oh, okay.
Up to you.
Okay. So today, what am I doing today? You know what? You guys gave me all the inspiration I need. I woke up this morning and I read Each Day a New Beginning, the daily reflection. It was about mirrors. When I came into this program, I hated what I saw in the mirror. And it's coming on 6 years. And now I'm not cured. Let's get that right. I am not cured, but what I see in the mirror is something that doesn't make me want to throw up anymore. So maybe in 6 more years, I might actually say to the mirror, I like you. So one day at a time, thank you all for my sobriety, and with that, I'll pass.
Just a quick reminder to subscribe, like, or follow if you like the show on any of your favorite listening platforms. If you like the speakers and other content on the podcast, please show us some love by leaving a review and consider making a PayPal contribution to help keep the show going at paypal.me/a shot glass of recovery. Every dollar makes a difference, and we thank you. Our speakers come from my AA home group, AA Solution Seekers. We meet every day at 7 a.m., so pop in sometime and say hello. Until next time, thanks for joining me on A Shot Glass of Recovery.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.